Hello everybody, my name is Louise Gardner and I'm an illustrator and I also teach ACT skills, which stands for Acceptance and Commitment Therapy. I discovered ACT about 3 years ago and just found it life-changing with my own struggles that I'd had with anxiety. And so wanted to discover more and like I said, I've done lots of training since. And just feel really passionate about sharing these skills with other people so they can use them in their own lives. My alter ego for my illustration is a big bunny, so hence this is why I've got the ears on, and hopefully it might cheer you up a little bit today. So yeah, do check out my, I've got a Facebook page with called Auntie, and my YouTube channel, and there'll be a lot more drawings and animations on there, which hopefully will be able to help if you're interested in finding out more about ACT and how to apply it in your own life. So I've got a timer on, so I know how long I'm talking for, because I do have a tendency to rabbit on. So this, I haven't got a script, I've got a few little notes here, so this is just going to be me rambling on, and hopefully I will say some things that might be helpful. I think the main thing at the moment is just that we are going through such incredibly unusual times that you will be feeling all kinds of difficult emotions, and I'm sure your mind is super busy at the moment, and I think that is normal and to be expected. So I think part of that is just not giving yourself a hard time for feeling whatever you feel at the moment. Our bodies are going to be sensing fear, because the one thing our mind doesn't like is the unknown and uncertainty, so it will be scrambling to try to find some certainty and make sense of things, and at the moment there's so much that we don't have control over and so many things that we can't make sense of, that it is going to be feeling, it's going to be normal to be feeling scared at the moment. And when we feel scared, our bodies will go into flight and fight, flop and drop and freeze, and so it'll be normal to be having a lot of difficult physical sensations in our body too. So I think it's having huge compassion for however we find ourselves each day at the moment, and you know, because it is really hard at the moment. We're all struggling with different things, and so acceptance and commitment therapy are ways that we can definitely make things a little bit easier for ourselves in difficult times. There's so many things that are out of our control, and always will be. Life is always out of our control, really. But there are things that we can control, which is mainly just us, how we react to our thoughts and emotions, and how we act and behave. And so we're going to go through some of the main skills. The first thing is awareness. I think one of the key things is so many people are not aware that they're not the thinker of their thoughts. I mean, you do have like you could kind of chat to yourself, as in, you know, this morning I was, you know, organising myself thinking, right, I need to get the camera ready, and, you know, that kind of thing, that you are having that kind of talk with yourself about practical things. But there's also thoughts that just arise all the time in our minds that we don't have any control over. They just will pop up in our minds. You know, so there was lots of thoughts about what I was going to look like and what I was going to say and how silly I was going to look and things like that. You know, we will always have those kind of other thoughts that just pop into our mind, and it's what we do once those thoughts pop into our mind that's more important. So the key, I think, is first of all knowing that you are not the thinker of your thoughts, that thoughts just spontaneously arise. So you are the observer of your thoughts, you're not actually your thoughts. And quite often we'll have a loop of thoughts, feelings, sensations and behaviours, and we can get caught up in those loops, and actually we can step out at different times by changing our behaviour, noticing our thoughts, making rooms for our feelings, and awareness, I think, of when those first sensations arise. I mean, they are so subconscious a lot of the time. So say something has happened, you might be with your partner or something, or someone says something to you where maybe you feel that your feelings have been dismissed, And that can bring up a lot of difficult feelings, but actually your mind works so quickly. It's like your mind has rifled through your filing cabinets of all your memories of your conditioning up to the person you are now, and especially from our childhood. And it's like it wants to play snap. It will find something that matches the feeling that we're having now with something in our past. And actually we can quite often react to a situation now as if it was something in the past. So we can almost overreact very strongly to situations now, and it might actually be what that situation is about now. It can be a lot of feelings from the past that have come up instead when we feel, say, dismissed. And it doesn't mean that we don't speak to that person and tell them how we feel, and hopefully maybe find better ways to communicate with each other, with respect and kindness. But it's choosing the time that we might do that when we're feeling calmer and more in control. So I think the most important thing is awareness of our feelings as we arise, and the more you practice that, the better you get at it. Meditation is a fantastic way to do that, but I know lots of people do struggle with the thought of even just sitting still. I would say definitely have a go at it. I find it incredibly helpful. It just helps you become really familiar with your mind, to notice those old stories that pop up and familiar patterns. And the more you notice them, you just realise how many thought loops your mind will go into, like the same old stories just pop up again and again and again, and then you can start noticing them. And that's not what's happening in the now, not in the present moment. It's just stories of the past that hook us, and then we can be jerked around like a puppet, getting caught back up into those old stories, which, might just not be helpful. It's like going on an archaeological dig again. You don't need to always dig down into those feelings. We know the stories a lot of the time, and it can just be unhelpful. That's the most important thing, is if I get hooked by this thought, if I let this thought lead me, is it helpful? Does it help me behave in the ways that I want to behave, or be the person I want to be? How does it make me feel, when I let this thought, jerk me around? And so awareness gives you more of a sense of control, that you can have those aha moments, there's that thought loop again, and I can just step away from it. We can't erase thoughts, but we can definitely decide how much attention we want to give them and whether we let them lead us or not. So quite nice metaphors that for those things are like your mind will be constantly throwing tennis balls at you, and you can choose whether you want to join in with the game or just let those balls go. You don't have to pick up every ball that's thrown at you. Or that it's like a dance, and we're all in these dances that we've been doing with our minds for years, old stories that we get caught up in. And we don't have to get caught up in those old stories. And each time we react in a different way, behave in a different way, we're actually creating new neural pathways, which is super exciting, so our habitual responses don't have to be our responses forever. We can create new habits by the ways that we react and respond to our thinking. And also know that our mind isn't our enemy, it's about protecting you and survival, but a lot of our mind evolved, it's part of our reptilian brain, it's our caveman brain, and it's just very much about getting away from danger and survival, and we can react from that place when we're not very aware, but when we're aware, we can calm down and slow down, and we actually respond from the much more evolved parts of our brain. So we're actually responding in a much more emotionally intelligent, mature way, which I'm sure we would all wish we could most of the time. None of us are perfect. It's not that we're going to be doing it all the time, but the more we do that, the more that will become more habitual. And so there's a Buddhist metaphor about that. It's like life will always throw arrows at us, and at the moment I'm sure we all feel that there are a lot of arrows coming our way. Life is unfair, life is unpredictable, and so much of it is out of our control, so we will get hit by those arrows, and there's no way to avoid those arrows. But it's then whether we add a second arrow, and whether we add that second arrow of more suffering, rather than reacting to the situation that's actually happened in the best way that we can, and taking control of the things that we can take control of. to look after ourselves and to look after others, and I guess just to make life as easy as it can be. Not that life is easy by itself, but there's definitely ways that we can react and respond that doesn't add more difficulty to the situation. I guess maybe let's look at it that way. So I think at the moment as well, like I said, we will be having so many different thoughts and feelings, and for a lot of us, it can be difficult thoughts and feelings can feel so physically uncomfortable. I think sometimes you feel like you want to literally get out of your body, get out of your skin and run away from ourselves. But we can't actually do that. So it's finding ways to befriend our emotions. I think I'd say that's the whole thing in ACT, really, befriending our thoughts, befriending our emotions, understanding that so many of the things that happen to us internally in our thoughts and emotions are not our enemy, and how we can have a different relationship with those things. And so I think when difficult thoughts and feelings come up, it really is sitting with those feelings, and people would say, well, why would I want to even be with those feelings? But the truth is they are going to be there anyway, and the more we struggle with them, the harder they'll be. So actually befriending them, changing our relationship with them, means that they will move through us more easily, I guess. Emotions are feelings in motion. They just want to be felt and move through you, and it's almost like when we block them by not wanting to feel them, that they can get stuck. So I think when we notice, so we can notice thoughts as they arise, and in ACT we use diffusion. We can use diffusion skills to separate ourselves from those thoughts. So noticing that you're the observer of the thought is the first point, but then we can actually say things like, I notice I am having the thought that, or we do quite fun things like if it's not a really serious heavy thought, we can just notice it being iced on top of a cake, or imagine the thought written on a computer screen, and sometimes that can just give us that little gap between us and our thoughts. But sometimes in thoughts, that will bring up feelings then, or maybe the feelings have come up first and then we're having thoughts about the feelings. But the feelings, it's making room for those feelings, because they are going to be here, and the more we resist them, the more difficult it's going to feel. Because then, say we might feel angry, and then we might feel angry about having anger, or sadness about having sadness. But almost like if we can take away the language, I know we can't, but imagining not having thoughts about those feelings. If you could not label it as sadness, what would this feeling feel like? And it's just almost like noticing where that feels in my body. So it can feel quite comforting to put your hand on your heart, on your chest, and and just say, okay, here's sadness, and where does that feel? What am I feeling like that in my body? Is it a lump in my chest? Is it tension in my jaw? And it's just making room for those emotions. I think we can feel that emotions are really overwhelming, and that they're going to be too much for us to handle. But there's a part of you that is always resilient, that is, and no emotion is ever too big for you to handle, however much it feels like that. And a metaphor that we use a lot is like, you are like the sky. The sky is untouchable and unharmed by the weather, and your emotions are like the weather that are just passing through. And yes, sometimes there can be a really big, heavy, weather front of thunder and lightning, but it will change, and it's not that it's not difficult in those storms. And so it's validating that as well, and having huge self-compassion for yourself when things are really hard, because at the moment things are going to be incredibly hard for everybody in all kinds of different ways. So I think it's validating, saying this, to be honest, is really shit. What would you say to your best friend? This is so hard at the moment. I don't want, of course I want this to be different. This is so hard, and, just be there for yourself as much as you possibly can. And it's difficult at the moment if you're on your own, not having physical touch and comfort, so it's ways that we can soothe and comfort ourselves, kind of give ourselves a hug, maybe journal, connection, talk to friends and things. And then there's obviously different challenges when you're like living with other people, that other people's moods can affect us, or we can be tired and grumpy, or, we're trying to work and we've got children, just so many challenges at the moment. So it's just validating, that a lot of these challenges are hard, and we're not going to feel great a lot of the time, but, moods will flow and change. And that nothing is permanent, and even this situation now, things will change. So I think, so awareness of your thoughts, diffusion of those thoughts, acceptance of your feelings, and having huge self-compassion for yourself, and hopefully others, for everything that we're all going through at the moment. And so in ACT as well, that we focus a lot on values. It's really helpful to know what your values are, because they're almost like a compass that will guide you, of how you want to be as a person, how you want to show up in life. And then we take committed action that are guided by our values. So say, for example, you care about compassion or kindness, they are some of your values that you want to be led by. That, how can you be kind and compassionate to yourself? And how can you be kind and compassionate to other people? Values work both ways, so don't forget to always include yourself in those, in your actions. So many things are out of our control. The one thing that we can control is the way that we behave and show up for ourselves and others. And so, when we are aware of that, of what we're thinking and feeling, it can give us just that pause where we have a choice about how we show up. And it's not that it's going to be easy, it's not like the thoughts and feelings are going to go away, but it just gives us some sense of being in control in some ways in our life, when we do show up. And so it's like at the moment, I'm sure a lot of us are wanting to eat comfort food, we want to do things that make us feel better, but some of those things might not be the best for us in the long term. And it's not about being perfect, it's about absolutely being kind to yourself and giving yourself some flexibility to do the things that you do want to do. But also, maybe just being wiser in the way our decisions as much as we can, like what foods are actually going to nurture us and make us feel better. In what other ways are we nurturing ourselves? What are we feeding ourselves on a daily basis? Are we watching a lot of news? Things that are just out of our control, that are just making us feel more stressed in our thoughts and body. Could be we watching soothing, comforting films? What books are you reading? Could you read some fiction that was maybe a bit escapist, that took you somewhere else that feels comforting for a while? Or maybe, even a book that you found comforting as a child, that could be really nice at the moment. And if people in your lives maybe are very negative and you feel very drained when you're talking to people, it's okay to limit the time that you speak to people that maybe you're finding a bit draining or hard at the moment. And check in with people that that maybe you can have a bit of a laugh with, that are kind and caring and validating, and that you can just chat to. Nature, if you are lucky enough to be able to get outside, is obviously super nurturing. Could you go for a walk? Could you listen to bird song? Just like really be in the moment and take in some nature, really look at leaves and just be very present. When we put our attention outside of ourselves, that can help slow down our thinking. So in ACT, we do anchoring or grounding exercises, and so we could do a little short one now if you'd like to join in. So you can do it sitting or standing, you can do it with your eyes shut or closed, whichever is more helpful for you. Some people find focusing on their breathing helpful, some people don't find that as helpful, so whatever works for you. It's all about flexibility and doing what works for you. If you really press your feet into the floor, really feel how solid the ground is under your feet. And maybe imagine that your feet are like chocolate and they're just melting into the floor. Maybe take a nice breath in, maybe into your belly if you can. And then just let that breath out. Do that a couple of times in. Out. And then maybe notice the pressure of your body on where you're touching the chair, the weight of gravity pressing down. And then notice your hands. How do your hands feel? They feel warm or cold? Can you feel like an energy inside them, like a tingling? And then we can take our attention outside of ourselves. What sounds can you hear? Can you notice sounds that are closer to you? And then maybe sounds that are further away. And then we can bring ourselves back into the room and we can look at things around the room. Could you notice some things of different colours? I always think that's quite a fun one. So, can we spot some things that are green? Can you spot some things that are red? Can you spot some things that are blue? And then you've just taken that little pause, that little gap. And, we can just do that many, many times a day, and that can be really helpful to just bring in those little tiny moments that can just help us feel a bit more grounded and safe. And the more times that we do those things, they can help us feel a little bit more soothed and calm. And then other things, it's I guess mastering things that where we feel that we've achieved something can be helpful too. So these don't have to be big things, maybe if you're with children, helping someone with their homework, or helping a partner with a task, maybe a DIY, or cooking if you're lucky to be able to do those things, or if you can get out in the garden, could you do some gardening, or exercising, which I know you might not feel like at the moment. And our minds won't give us so many reasons why we couldn't be bothered to do those things. I don't want to do those things, I'm too tired. But if we do those things anyway, we'll often find that afterwards we have a sense of achievement for having done that thing. So it's finding little ways that we can just have a sense of achievement every day. So sometimes, even though we don't feel like it, maybe having a bit of a schedule to go for that walk every day, maybe dig out that old exercise DVD, calling our friend, just lots of moments in a day where we do something that makes us feel better about ourselves and gives us a little bit of sense of control over our lives, can be really, really helpful. I'm trying to think of some other things. So I guess, just recapping the things that we've been through. So first of all is awareness. The more you can practice being aware, the more helpful it is. That, like I said, you don't have to do meditation, but it is helpful if you want to give that a try. There's lots of free resources online. Insight Timer is a fantastic resource, an app, which you could look into trying some meditations on there. So awareness of your thoughts as they arrive, using diffusion. I notice I'm having the thoughts of when those thoughts arise. Noticing that you don't have to play the same games with your mind, with those thoughts, but that your thoughts isn't your enemy, it's just trying to keep you safe. And that it's normal to have lots of different sensations in our body at the moment, because our body will be responding to a sense of threat of the unknown. And so it's different ways that we can soothe ourselves and ground ourselves and be present in the moment, with ourselves, with nature, with others. And then our values, what matters to us, who do I want to be in this moment, how do I want to show up for myself and for others, and how I can embody that and actually take committed action to do those things in the best way that I can in the situation that we're in. And I think mainly just be super, super compassionate to yourself, however you find yourself every day. We are going to be on a huge, non-stop, ever-changing wave of emotions at the moment. So it's almost like learning to surf those emotions. But knowing, one of the metaphors we use as well, like the sky, is that you are like the ocean, and your feelings and emotions are like the waves. So you are the untouchable deep depths of the ocean. It's just actually happening on a surface level. But still validating that these are difficult times for everybody at the moment, and whatever you're feeling is probably not comfortable, but that there is that part of you that is always resilient, and that we can have a conversation with that part of ourselves. We can talk to that compassionate part of ourselves. We can imagine what a best friend would say to us. We could imagine what a coach would say to us, that was supporting us and cheerleading us. And we could imagine what a fierce protector would say to us, that has our back, that wants the best for us. So there's so many ways we can help and nurture ourselves, in what we eat, what we choose to read, what we choose to watch, who we choose to speak to, and skills that we can learn online at the moment. Like we said, maybe some meditation classes, or some new exercise classes, and there's lots of guided relaxation things like Insight Timer. So maybe if you can't get out of the house and you're lucky enough to be able to have a little bit of space and time for yourself, you could take a little bit of time and do a guided meditation that would maybe take you into nature, to the coast or into a forest, or whatever would feel soothing to you. So I just wanted to say that whatever you're feeling is okay. You're normal. You're a human being having a normal human experience, and this is an unusual experience for all of us. So be super kind to yourself, and do those little things that you can each day to make it a little bit easier for yourself and others. Okay, I hope this helps. Do check out some of my animations. I'm on Facebook as Auntie, and on my YouTube channel, and Twitter and Instagram, and I share my drawings and animations there, which hopefully might be able to help as well. Okay, you take care, stay safe, bye.